Hello Zohaib. First of all, congratulations, you have cleared your TEF exam with a score of above CLB 5 plus.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy you are one of my first students who cleared this exam with a great score, and that too in India when you were taking your classes from abroad in Canada. So, Zohaib, this is a small recording that I'm doing to show to our subscribers and our students how you prepared, what was your journey, on what parts did we both, work together, and
Mhm.
so your key takeaways, your things which you observed with your preparation, the things which helped you eventually. So,
Yeah.
Zohaib, my first question is, it's been how many months or years that you are learning French?
Okay. So the very first time I started, that was I think December of 2024. I
Okay,
wouldn't even see this December because it was I think after Christmas. So
okay,
I think the beginning of January of 2025, and now we're in 2026. So I think almost a year. But I would say like yeah, I started in January of 2025, but I didn't study religiously like every single day from then up until now. There were a lot of breaks and there were a lot of gaps in the middle, which we probably might talk about later in the interview,
okay,
but or like later in this talk. But yeah, I think the very first time I started, January 2025.
okay.
Mhm.
And it's been then how many months that you have been properly studying French, without any longer breaks or something?
Yeah, see, the thing is, I go in like phases, which is I would not recommend that to anyone. That's very unproductive way of doing it. But what I did was like I wouldn't study anything for months, and then I would study like 2 or 3 months intensively, and then I'll just leave it again, and then I'll pick it up again. So I would say like in total, where I actually studied, it would probably be 7 to 8 months. The rest 4 or 5 months, if I stayed 7 months, it's only like five remaining. Rest 5 months were just like gaps, or with the very basic thing. I'll just do like a lesson on Duolingo every single day, but that was it, which is just not enough for language learning, I think. So
Okay.
7, I would say.
Okay. And okay, Zohaib, so when you started learning French, you started with the basics, articles, pronunciation, the basis of grammar, conjugation, and all. So, because initially you took breaks, did you observe that when you were taking breaks and you were revisiting the same concepts, it was difficult for you to, again go to that level which you had achieved somewhere back in the past? And when you started being consistent, somewhere, you started having that flow state that you were, constantly progressing. So do you agree that having longer breaks eventually it, leads to problems?
Longer breaks. See, I mean, I share the view that I feel like every time we learn something,
Okay.
um, with like our heart and passion, right? I don't think it goes away. I mean, sure, like if you, it's the same thing you apply at gym. Like when you work out something and then you don't work out for a few months, like of course you lose muscle mass. But then when you go right back into it, you already have muscle memory. And I
Yeah.
think it's kind of something similar in language too. So every time you learn something, it stays with you, but because it's not being used every single day,
Mhm.
obviously it goes, our brain is very good at putting things away, which we don't need in day-to-day life. So it puts it in the back burner. And
Okay.
then when we come back after 2, 3 months, in beginning, yeah, we'll feel really lost, but it comes back quicker. And and yeah, like all of a sudden you find your rhythm again. So I feel like obviously it's unproductive, like you're losing a lot of months in the middle. But if you do go back and
Okay.
you lost, don't, I would say like there's nothing to be worried about. It does come back.
Okay.
And whatever you truly learn, it just doesn't go away like that. Of course, like if you don't study for 10 years, you might feel like, yeah,
Yeah.
everything is gone. But
Got it.
um, you know how in French you'll feel like nul, complete.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, I think it's, I mean, if you're someone, or if there is someone who's like going through this phases, who go in this gap and feel like we cannot come out, right? It's been 6 months. I studied French. I don't know if I can do it. It was difficult when I started. It'll be even more difficult now. Actually, not. Just go back to it, and you can basically pick it up from where you left. You could totally do that. And once you start doing it again, you find your rhythm again, just like with other things in life, right?
Okay. Fair enough. One question from one of my students, Zohe, for you. What made you choose TEF over TCF? Anything specific, or it was just a random decision because everybody was preparing for TEF and less people were preparing for TCF? Your honest take on this.
Yeah, see, it's a very controversial one online, like a lot of debates on that, especially on Reddit too. But I think personally, I feel like they both are language exams. They both are just very similar. I can't imagine them to be, this one's easier, this one's difficult. It comes down to preferences. What I like about TEF in
Okay.
Section B
Okay.
is you're actually having a dialogue with someone, you're actually speaking to
Okay.
someone. And me, my personality in general, I love conversing with people. So for that, I feel like it was more suited to my personality. That's why I chose that. But there are people who like speaking, monologues. So for them, I think TCF would be more suited. So it comes down to like what you feel more at, ease with.
Exactly.
Me personally, I chose TEF. I would still choose TEF, like even in future, just because I feel like if I'm sitting with someone face to face, having that conversation, it just flows more naturally. And
Yeah.
it's similar in IELTS too. I think like there is another English exam called CELPIP, which you give in front of the screen. I
Mm-hmm.
always choose IELTS just because I love, actually speaking to a person. And yeah.
Okay. Coming to your scores, Zohaib, so you have gotten, I can see on my phone, you have gotten in comprehension écrite, which is reading comprehension, CLB 4. In comprehension oral, you got CLB 5, and in writing and in spoken part, you got CLB 6. This was your first attempt, Zohaib, and I think it was after a proper preparation of 6, 7 months. When
Yeah.
you take any breaks at all. We'll break it down to each component now, especially for the part of comprehension oral. What exactly did you do?
Comprehension oral, what I did was like I replaced my day-to-day scrolling with like podcast most of the time. So first of all the listening aspects of things which we input, like listening music, listening to news, all those stuff, I replaced it with French. So
Okay.
I only listen to French music, and I actually, it's just like you eat food and you get used to it. Once you start listening to French music, you start liking the rhythm, liking the flow of the music, and then you fall in love with it. So I only listen to French music, and then start with that, and then once in a while you can sit down and actually read the lyrics and then break down the lyrics and see what it means. And
Okay.
then when those sound connects with the meaning of it, and then music is something you can listen on a daily basis. You cannot get
Yeah.
bored of. You listen to the same songs every day, right?
Yeah.
Then again and again that word keeps coming, and those pronunciation, they start sitting in your head, which actually really helps with your expressing of all also. I said all see, but anyway.
It happens.
And then podcast. Inner French is great.
Okay.
Easy French is great because Easy French, we get used to like listening to people, Parisian, like
Works
actual
together. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. With different accents, you have not accents, but like different age group. Like you have an old person
Yeah.
being interviewed, then a younger kid. Inner French, just because I feel like he talks about interesting stuff, which
Yeah.
uh, you know, strike a chord with people. Like I personally found a lot of topics which was interesting, so I wanted to hear it again and again.
Okay.
And thirdly, I love following news. Now you could find anything of your interest. So I started watching in French in my like all my YouTube. Like it's the algorithm has completely changed. It pushes me like Radio Canada. So it's like Quebec French all the way. And I would love to learn about all the World War, Iran, US, but why not in French? And
Okay.
if you learn something about the topic you want to learn, so you will even the things you're missing in the middle, your brain would just be able to bridge them
Yeah.
because you already know what's going on. It is about the war, it is being bombarded. So you
Yeah.
can pick up a lot of new words. So yeah, a few things like that. And like now, like this was one of my weaker suit. It's I think everybody's weaker suit in the beginning. Listening is challenging, really challenging, still is.
Okay.
Um, but now I think I'm focusing more on like note taking. So like whatever I hear, how much can I retain it
Mm-hmm.
and write them down. Uh,
Okay.
that is like, when you could just be thrown on the streets of Quebec and Paris and you'd be just fine because you're so used to, you've consumed so much,
Mm-hmm.
your brain can just decode it in seconds without ever needing to translate. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
but it takes time. Listening definitely takes time and there's no shortcuts to it.
it does. And for reading comprehension, anything specific you did for reading comprehension?
I didn't do anything honestly for reading, and that's why it was my score was pretty poor. I underestimated it.
Okay.
So definitely would not recommend because yeah, I because when I would do listening, I would be reading the script transcript. So I thought that is my reading practice. But reading in itself is a module for a reason. You actually have to practice reading. You actually
Yeah.
have to read something every single day in French. You
Yes.
cannot just like read the transcripts and you be like, yeah, that is my reading practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I've ordered a few books, like a bunch of short stories. So I'm definitely paying more attention to this. And yeah, like reading is something which is really important because I feel like what it does is like your brain starts to see, first of all, obviously it sees the same word repeat a lot more and more when you do reading, but
Okay.
also the structure. I think that starts setting because in French it's the structure is all over the place. When you compare it with English, it's
Yeah.
structure is all over the place. But the more you read, the structure starts sitting. And
Yeah.
then you wouldn't question yourself why this works like this or that. Then you
Exactly.
just know that this works like this because this works like this, and then a
Yeah.
lot of like that. So,
Tout à fait.
mhm.
For writing part, Zohe, because writing was one thing which we could not do more. In our classes, we were mainly focusing on expression orale. So
Yeah.
writing, how did you tackle? And especially getting CLB 6 in the very first attempt, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But how did you prepare?
Yeah, writing. So yeah, I was very impressed. Like even though it's CLB 6, but I was very happy with the score. I think I write something in French every single day in my journal. So that is one habit I have. Um, Second thing I feel with writing is anytime I get a thought in my head, I try to think about that in French and I go and verify it with AI. Like we have AI. Yeah, there are a lot of disadvantages, but there are some advantages to it too.
Yes.
If you use it to your benefit, and it doesn't harm you, then it's great. So I would go on ChatGPT, immediately translate it and see like where are all those corrections. And over the time, you will figure out like where are the places you repeat those errors. Like you'll start seeing a pattern, and then you can go one by
Mhm.
mistake, like accordance, right? Feminine, masculine is
Yes.
something which is happening all the time. Then you would notice it. Be like, okay, okay, I found this. This is like really zeroing in with that Kobe Bryant, how he says, like you zero that in and then you tackle that and then move on to the next one. And then you journal, obviously,
Mhm.
line to line, you try to write something, even though it's hard. Writing is very, very challenging too and difficult because in the beginning, because it does, you just block, like, what are you going to write about? And then you have accents and then you have all that. So
Yeah.
writing
Spelling.
a little bit of that, yeah. And one more thing, though, I would like to add is I wish I could have done
Okay.
going back is I actually completely ignored all the accents and circumflex, aigu, rav. I ignored it. I'm like, I will learn this later. I just need to know how to write. And that is something I regret now because accents are very, very important right from the beginning. They have two distinct sounds as well. Don't believe anyone in the market telling you that they're both similar. They're not. They're
Yeah.
two different things. So Egi and Khab, there's definitely a difference. So, and it's important to know them right from the beginning. So you don't have to come at a B1 level and then have being worried about like, oh, I have to go back and revisit it because there are a lot of words which I know for sure what they mean, what they sound, but I just don't know what accent is it ego and Khab, like you're guessing it. So
Mhm.
that is something which is important right from the start. But
Got
and
it.
if I may add, like when it comes to the test,
Mhm.
it's also important to prepare for the test. Yeah, you can practice all this little things,
Yeah.
but when as you approach the test, like let's say you have 3 weeks, 4 weeks left, then you really start looking at the topics TEF usually gives and like what kind of essays people have wrote, and then
Mhm.
like you'll start seeing like a structure almost how it works.
Yeah.
Don't memorize those essays, please, for
Mhm.
your sake, but start seeing the patterns how it works because
Okay.
it helps a lot. Because you could be a great writer, but if you don't know how to write it in the exam, no
Yeah.
point, right?
Exactly. Even the section A of expression écrite, where you have to continue a story, it has its own ways. You cannot just make it too funny or too
Yeah,
serious. It should be balanced. Same
yeah.
for section B, where you have to write a letter. You should
Mhm.
use connector. It should be structured,
Yeah,
and you should again keep it also in mind the word limit. Sometimes
yeah,
people, they write too long and they forget.
yeah.
We have to in 100 words or 80 words, we have to make it concise and proper.
Absolutely. And because if you think about it, like a lot of, especially in section B, if you think about it, it carries more weight, right? But the topics are actually easy, what they ask you to
They
write.
are, they are, yeah,
And I almost feel like that is almost like a trap to you. Like here is an easy topic, and you go like, wow, I can write so much about it. And then you go way over the word limit. And the more
yes,
you write, the more you're exposed to making mistakes.
exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, like don't just look at the topic and you just go, boom, I'm gonna do this.
Hmm.
You only have to write certain amount of words. This is not a test of like how you're the best French speaker on this planet.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
you don't need to go overboard.
Exactly. That's a very good line, Zohaib. It's not a test where you have to flaunt your French. It's a test where you just have to show that you are competent enough to answer these questions and
Yeah,
using the structures which, somebody at level B1 and B2 can use.
yeah. It's
Come
got to
down
be
to my,
strategic, that's it.
yeah. I'll come down to my second last question, perhaps regarding expression oral. Now, this is the part for which you came to me, Zohaib, I think back in the month of October or November,
Mhm.
in like last year. And I remember we used to practice like too much of, section A and B again and again, again and again. We
Yeah,
would start with easy exercises, then we would increase the level of the questions. And
yeah,
initially used to take some time to prepare the questions, but we came, till a point that you would not take more than 30 seconds to prepare for section A questions. And
yeah,
even for, section B conversation, and you would like quickly ask me the questions, and you were also progressing with each day.
yeah.
So how could my teaching and your own hard work, how could it help you tackle this part more, especially in OHAL with CLB 6, for
Mhm.
which I've seen people, they are able to get more than CLB 5 in all the four sections. But in expression OHAL, they have a lot of problems. They are able to get only three or four initially. So how did perhaps my classes and also your own homework or your own tasks, it help you?
Absolument. Tout d'abord, il faut rester régulier. Like the biggest thing is like you have to stay regular. I think I always preach that.
Yeah,
In coming in terms of like how to like tackle it, I
yeah.
feel I'm glad I came across your Instagram at the right time because that's a time when you like when you're ready to get the exam, you
Okay.
have to practice it. You have to know what the format is of the exam, how it actually takes
Mm-hmm.
place. So it's very important, and I feel like you need to do it with someone who has a good enough grasp of the language, right? Because you if I'm just like you could have done the test like you could have not contradicted me in section B and just be like give me easy, but no, like you have to create that real test environment. uh,
Yeah,
so when you actually go into the test you don't feel those nerves. And I think yeah, we did so many of them, like every weekend we did twice, and,
yeah.
and sometimes thrice. And alongside that, like I must add, like I did so I took a few classes from on italki as well,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like just not doing anything TEF related, which is
Mm-hmm.
really important, which I was doing with you. With
Yeah.
him, I was just doing practicing my French, so it just becomes more and more natural, right?
Um,
So those two combined at that time when I was already ready to like, I'm done with A2, okay, what's the next step? Because there is a big gap between, I mean, after A2, it's like hard to go to B1, hard to go from B1 to B2,
yes.
really hard to go from B2 to C1.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, now what, right? Like, subjunctive, conditionnel, all that stuff. But now what? Like, I'm still not able to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen unless you actually speak,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
all those classes, like, um, you could take online, I wouldn't name them. Like, I've tried them for a very limited period of my time, but
Okay.
they don't really prepare you for this, like the thing is you can learn grammar all by chat gpt too, or like if you really there's French with Alexa, you can do that over there. But like having a face-to-face experience with a teacher, it's a different ball game altogether, right? And like getting those corrections on the spot, like, no, you can change this here, those stick in your brain for a longer period of time. Like when you get corrected with the context around you, like, okay, this cannot apply here because this is that. So yeah, I mean, it was very very, very important for me at that point. And like, yeah, the more you do it, the more it gets fluent, and then you almost figure out like, well, this is how the exam is supposed to go. And again, like you helped me with it, this too, like the more when you get into like once you've done enough preparation,
Mm-hmm.
you get into a part where you can like find natural phrases which natives would use and like throwing them here and there, in the mix. But that is more like fine tuning it. First, you need to be able to speak, and I feel for that you need someone to speak to, and you cannot do that with online courses where you don't meet your professors. That is not gonna help because you're right. I mean, I've seen people who even have C1 in compréhension orale, compréhension écrite, and
Mm-hmm.
in production orale, it's like CLB 4. Like that gap is there for a reason. Like,
Why is it? But why is it, Zohaib? You tell me.
the gap is there for a reason because the other two part, it's consumption. You can consume it from the internet, from the reading,
Yeah.
from listening to music by yourself if you're really, really passionate.
Yeah.
At some point you have to give your stubbornness and actually find someone or a teacher or whatever it might be to actually practice producing the language too. That's a very big part of it, you know so too often like people get too consumed by consuming it, which is great, but then what's the point if you can't talk, right? So you got to find someone who you can speak to. And this is something I see um quite quite often, honestly, even on Reddit too. Like people can figure out, read everything great but can't speak. So it
True.
wouldn't happen unless you actually speak. I missed seven by like 4 points, and but for my first attempt I was like, you know I think like speaking is probably it became the easiest for me at some point because I I wouldn't. And the other thing with language is like you can't be shy. You have to be able to speak
Mm-hmm.
every you get wherever you get, right? So you got to come out of the bubble a little bit, but it comes, but
Mm-hmm.
in due time.
Just for people who must be watching this video now, I would want to add something to this. When Zohaib contacted me, he would deliberately try to speak in French, obviously making mistakes, and I would, feel as if like, why is he trying to be so hard on himself? Then I got to know his objective that he wants to clear TEF exam, and from the very initial part, he was aiming for CLB 7, if I remember. A point came when he said, "Okay, if I get CLB 5, it's fine." But then again, when he got that progress, he started aiming for CLB 7 in the very first attempt. But there was one thing which I really appreciate in you, Zoe, which I'm saying it honestly. You were regular in classes, you would do your homework, and also apart from whatever I taught you, you would also did things outside of the class.
Yeah,
You teach me new words, and I'll ask you, but Zohaib, how did you get this new? Like, where did you get this new word? Then you'd be like, Ashok, I listened to this video. He was mentioning this particular part, so I've
yeah,
used it now. And
yeah, yeah,
would impress me because somewhere you did what I just not prefer much. That's, I spoon feeding my students.
yeah,
And you were like, you don't need to spoon feed me. I'm getting fed by
yeah,
resources outside of the classes. But
yeah,
you help me make it more clearer now. You help me in the pronunciation. You help me make more proper sentences. Ashok, I got this new, format now. This new format of asking questions. How's it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was something I think, which I really appreciate, Zohaib, and which I see not in a lot of students these days.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you as someone who's a coach and like teaches language to other people. I mean, almost all of the professors, do have like a soft heart for their students, and they want to spoon feed them, just like how your mom would, want to take
Yes.
care of you.
Yeah.
But then at some point, you got to be able to resist that and, go away and like almost go and try to like discover the whole different world by yourself, right? Like, and if I may add, and so I took Alliance Francaise class after this,
Okay.
and this is actually un défi que j'ai remarqué. Like this is something I
Mhm.
noticed as a challenge for a lot of people is that they're in B1.4,
Okay.
so SB2, like almost B2,
Yeah.
can speak, right? Like they've been in Alliance Francaise for over a year and a half, can speak. If
Mhm.
you can explain me how your evening went in French, and I'm not bashing Alliance Francaise, the professor we had was fantastic,
Definitely. Mhm.
right? And but I feel um a lot of the times I would see like, kids get like too lost looking for the answers, and like,
Mm.
this is not um a math class or anything. This is a language class, and I feel you need to stay in touch with the language, because the Alliance also just holds the classes 2 days a week, 4 hour classes, 8 hours. Saturday, Sunday, you're done. You have Monday to Friday. What do you do on those days? Those are the days that is important. Those are the days that contribute the most. Because
Yeah,
language learning is a very personal journey. That's why everyone learns at a different pace and time. They,
definitely, Zohaib.
so yeah, I would say that is important. I mean, Alliance is great, but I feel like um, definitely I feel
One should not be comfortable with the idea that I'm getting taught by Alliance teachers,
I
not going to, kill it.
exactly, exactly. I mean, it's a great place to excel if you put your own efforts outside of it.
Exactly.
With any other professor or any other course you take, if
True.
you put your efforts outside of it, then it's a combination of both. Professor cannot do it alone at any circumstances. I do not believe it. You can, you can even have students for 4 years who will never progress from A2
Yeah.
because they can, right? Like you cannot force it into them. Like they need to be willing to do it. Come.
True, true, true. And my last question, Zohaib, one of the most asked questions. I get so many queries. Trust me. Student asking me, sir, we are at A2 level. Although in spoken, we are A0 or A1. And we are booking our exam exactly 3 months from now. Can we get CLB 7 if we work hard every day for 5 hours? And we are really hard workers. We were really good in studies when we were in school. And we are even, trying to get a break from our jobs, or maybe if not 3 months, maybe sir 4 months or 5 months. Can you please tell us something? What would be your response to them as somebody who has at least achieved 80% of that, of that score,
Yeah.
uh, after almost 6.5 months of hard work? Your honest response to them.
Absolument pas of the question. Like out of the question, it's impossible. If you had someone at A1 or A2 level and thinking about the test,
Hmm.
I see it on the Reddit all the time, and I've actually spoken to a few folks out of there too, and like they have the test book, and then they're saying "Je suis bien." So like you're not the problem is like you think like okay, well, I know basics and like I'll just memorize the template of the exam. It's a language exam. You have to score in 4 modules. You cannot escape it. You have to go through it. And 3 months in terms of duration, it is such a subjective question. Everyone learns at a different pace. Even if you were a genius, um, I would still think you would need 7 to 8 months. I would think. I
Hmm.
still think it's impossible, but maybe if there is a crazy linguistic out there, probably be able to do it in 7, 8 months. And then there are obviously like
Hmm.
extraordinary people who would just, they're just different, like how Ronaldo and Messi is in football. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, there are people like that. But in general, like I think for most normal folks, it would at least take a year. I mean, I would imagine to even get to like B1 plus,
Yeah,
because if you just rush it too, then you get to the exam, you will not feel that confidence, which would only come over time. You cannot you cannot fast track that. You cannot fast track time.
exactly. It
There's
makes
a way, let me know, yeah, but I don't think.
people have lost money. People have lost, I don't know, their time, their energy because of, these fake promises being done by teachers who himself cannot. I'm so sorry when I say this. They cannot even themselves pronounce a whole phrase properly together.
Yeah,
Promises of, helping somebody clear the exam in 4 months or even 5 months from the scratch, and
yeah,
with CLB 5, not even the promise of CLB. That is with a score of CLB 7, not even 5. So
yeah.
this
And
scam is, I don't know.
I feel like terrible about it. It's like because money, yeah, you can recover the lost money, but a lot of this folks online, they pin their hopes on it and
Yeah.
they get shattered afterwards, right? Like I've spoken to a few, where like your whole life depends on it.
Hmm.
And first of all, like you're thinking even on the best case scenario around you, learning a language in 6 months is nearly impossible. But then add the weight of like whatever the situation is, your visa is expiring, or like you're going through this,
Yes.
that baggage, and in 6 months, how
Yeah.
how are you gonna do it, right?
True.
I
Yeah.
you're gonna crash at some point, probably like you'll have a nervous breakdown like in 3 months. Because language learning is a very stressful process in itself. It's enjoyable, but it tests your patience, right?
Yes.
And yeah, feel bad, but and then when there is situations like this, there's always predators out there, just waiting to grab your money, like
Mm,
smelling your weakness and like knowing exactly what you're going through in life and just finding a way to like, yeah, come, we can teach you in 6 months or 5 months, and then you go into it with hope, and then 3 months later you realize now you wasted time, energy, lost all your hope. It's a very stressful situation right now.
yeah.
So I mean, it would definitely be wise to actually sit and think about it. Learning a language, ça prend du temps. It takes time. You
Yes.
can There's no shortcuts to it. And you can almost think about it as like, fine, if it takes 1 year or 1.5 year,
Mm-hmm.
then so be it, right? Take it. I
Yeah.
came back to India and then continue your journey. Like, it doesn't end like if it doesn't happen in 4 months. But the thing is, if you do study this 4 months, escaping the doubt or like the goal part, you will still learn something in 4 months. So in the fifth month, you would not be at A0 level, you would not be at A1 level, you might be at A2 level, which is
Yeah.
great. So from there, you can think like, oh, now I can maybe do it in 6 months,
Yes.
right?
And go
So
for the first attempt.
yeah, you can just break it down. You know how when you're trying to pronounce the French word, you just break it down. It's like
In
you get,
symbols. Yeah.
so
Great.
yeah.
So it was so interesting talking to you, Zohaib. Honest points given by you, your honest feedback. And I congratulate again, you because you were the first student of Sangama Fosse, my initiative, who cleared the exam with such a good score. And I'm sure you're gonna continue your journey ahead with French. And in some months, inshallah, this year you'll be clearing the exam with CLB 7 in all four sections. I wish you all the best. And yeah, I thank everyone who has watched the video. Thank you, Zoe, for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you. And good luck, everyone.
Sure.